I'm here with Loma. Loma, can you tell us what you do and how your journey began?
Okay, thank you, Abigail. So nice to see you again. My journey, yes, it's been a long one, and it's been one which has had several sort of bumps along the way. I didn't start knowing what I wanted to do. I felt like I spent a childhood raised into pleasing other people, especially my parents. And I chose a career which I thought at the time, at the very young age of 18, was the chosen path for me, but it wasn't. I entered law with a lot of fear and a sense of, I knew that I was an imposter, but not in the sense that I wasn't competent enough. It was more in the sense that I wasn't who I was. My values were very different from those of the people that I worked with in the corporate world. I feel that they appreciated the things that I appreciated. For example, kindness, or knowing the origins of some of our clients' money, and caring whether or not people were behaving in a corrupt way. And I, like, even when I'm speaking, I think there's a visceral sense that actually I felt so sometimes appalled by what was going on and what was being allowed to go on for the pursuit of money, that I felt very cynical working as a lawyer after a while. So I decided, well, actually, I went to have therapy because I was quite sad and quite depressed. And in the course of having therapy, I also did some group therapy with a group of women. By that time, I was living in Dubai, and I went on some vision quests in the desert, and I suppose I became a seeker, and my visions were telling me, actually, you are a problem solver, but you are a human problem solver, not a corporate problem solver. You don't belong in that world. You belong in the world where you are able to make a positive impact on the human race. And the best way for you to do that is to build good relationships with people, because relationships are the key for healthy development, whether it's the relationship you or I have with ourselves, or the relationship that people have with each other. But the first part is healing yourself, because you can't heal anybody else until you've healed yourself. So my journey to healing myself brought me to study psychotherapy. I went and studied at a school in America called the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology. And transpersonal psychology is a branch of psychology where we work with the spiritual as well as solid foundational science. But we also believe that the ancient traditions and have so much to tell and so much to learn. We have so much to learn from them. So, for example, whether it's meditation or chanting, or using other techniques where you reflect, for example, vision questing, which is done by a lot of native peoples around the world. So we use these as tools to help people on their journey, and we call it a psycho-spiritual journey. When you have mental health issues, it's not purely isolated to you as a person in your embodied self. It's actually a kind of spiritual crisis that you're having, and it's an opening. It's actually an opportunity to open, to have connection with something bigger than you. So rather than fearing your mental health issues, it's almost like seeing it as an opportunity and accepting that it's going to be difficult, and accepting that part of the process is to suffer, as in order to kind of get to a better place. So I started working as a psychotherapist, and the psychotherapy led me to basically working with many, many people now. I've been doing it since 2013, so it's been a long time. I worked in a hospital, I worked in clinics, and now I work on my own in private practice. I've led groups. I do different types of therapy, whether it's art therapy or trauma therapy. But all the time I have an emphasis on using mindfulness and reflective techniques with my clients to make sure that they are developing that sense of self-awareness on a much deeper level. And yes, so that's what I do and continue to do. But at the same time, one of the things that I began to feel an ache for when I was working as a therapist was that I had a creative self. My younger self was a very creative person. She loved to draw, she loved to design, she loved music, she loved dancing, but I wasn't allowed to continue any of that because I was told that that wasn't what I should do as the daughter of two immigrant doctors growing up in the UK. That wasn't allowed. That was actually frowned upon. So I sort of stamped it out. But one of the things I've learned is you cannot stamp out your innate creativity. Everyone has creativity, and it's not the creativity that requires you to be on form judged in an art gallery. It's actually the creativity, which is inherent in all of us, the sort of the ability to live connected to your emotions, the ability to live connected to nature, connected to something greater than you. And one of the things I've always admired, I suppose maybe I'm a shadow creator. I've admired people who are creative. So maybe this journey will take me to becoming a creative person in a few years. Who knows? I'm always open to it. Maybe I will end up designing. Maybe I will go back to, it'll be a full circle. But at the moment, I collated, well, at the moment I run a store as well as being a psychotherapist called SustStyle. And it's a collection of mostly female-led independent designers who each have their own unique story, and each of them design with a view to either promoting the environment by working in a way that doesn't, with sustainable materials, or they work, they're very much interested in social justice issues. So they work with women, supporting, one of my designers supports single mums in Peru. But they also have an eye on the creative design side. So they produce beautiful pieces, and these pieces are unique. And I wanted to create a platform where they could show their stuff to the world, but also women who were wanting to break free of this sort of whatever, the idea that, fashion's become so commercialized and corporatized that we're all required to dress the same or look the same. But it's also connected to psychotherapy, because what I do in psychotherapy is help people find their authentic self and heal it. So when you find your authentic self, you want to express it, and you want to connect with people who share those values with you of authenticity. And so connecting the buyer with the designer, the customer with the designer, and allowing men to wear their clothes, I often find is quite transformative. So I'm and I'm not saying this because I'm trying to sort of exaggerate or plug, but often I get feedback that, what I'm wearing has made such an impact. People have commented for the first time on that woman's appearance, and said wonderful things to her before she hadn't been noticed. So maybe there's something around dressing women to be their best selves, to reflect their inner beauty, that's really important as a purpose of SUST. But also, I also want to create a platform to highlight the importance of, and this is a side issue, of the way that women have become, almost addicted to fast fashion. And actually, when you can buy a few select pieces for your wardrobe every year, which have been made with a lot of care and consideration for the planet and for its people, and actually, resist the urge to kind of fill the ache or the void with the purchase of something, which is what we're all doing, but actually to spend more time focusing on yourself and expressing yourself, then I feel like that's a journey of healing, not just for women, but for society, if we can change the culture around shopping. So these are some of the values that have come from me as a person, also from the work I do as a psychologist, to the work I do as a store. The store has a purpose. And so that's the other thread. You asked me why I do what I do. I think it's because I feel like true work should feel like it is, the work is doing you rather than you're doing the work. You're a vehicle through which this, whatever manifests, comes through. And if you are clear in your direction, pure in your heart, and you feel convinced by your purpose, then it'll come through very strongly, and it'll impact people around you in a really positive way. And now I'm trying to coordinate the two things in the styling that I do. So I've created a new concept called style stories, because what I noticed with a lot of the women who I work with, and I'd love to work with men too, but they just haven't come into my path yet, is that often our style is, if we're lucky, it's inspired solely by us. But for most people, their journey to finding self is tortuous and difficult. And they pick up a lot of, I would say, baggage along the way around who they are and what they're allowed to do and how they're allowed to express themselves in their style. And I've, in this new concept I'm working on, I'm trying to help women, first of all, understand their style story. What is the narrative they have around their body image, the clothes that they wear, and the person that they are? How do the three things combine? And how do we move them to actually recognizing that they can move, they can own their style, they can let go of the negative talk? Maybe it's come from one of my clients. I'm working with one client at the moment. Her mother has been a very negative influence on her and told her many things. She's a woman in her late 40s, but her mother has told her all through her life that she is not attractive, she is not this, she is not that. And she has internalized that about herself and carries around a very heavy sense of her own body, and a very heavy sense of her own, and a very narrow sense of what she can wear and how she can express it. And yet, when I speak to her, I see there's a lightness of being, there's a beauty, there's, a spark, there's an intelligence, a wit. So we've been working together on disengaging the story that her mother has told her about herself with her own story, so she can reclaim herself and start to change everything about the way she expresses herself. And she's already seeing a difference in her sense of self-worth, and even in her relationship with her mother and her partner, who was also not seeing her. It's almost like she was perpetuating this in every relationship she had. Yeah. So that's actually, when people say, oh, what do you mean style? Style is so superficial. I think style is actually not superficial at all. It's the expression of your authentic self to the world. So it's actually really, really, important, and so important to kind of think about carefully. So I'm hoping that through this venture, we can, I can help more and more people to find a positive sense of self and to be able to express it to the outside world. So that's where I'm at.
I love that. I'm really interested to see how the journey went from being this corporate lawyer where you just felt empty and outraged to how you evolved on this journey, because you're evolving lots of other people through your company, through your counselling, but it's also an evolution of you. So talk about how that felt, because even yours, because I've known you, put it out there, we've known each other for years, so it's your own styles evolved, the way you present yourself, your clarity around your purpose, your vision is you're so clear, and everything links in your head, and it's so clear to watch it. So talk about how that's affected you.
Well, I think my journey, for me, I guess my innate personality is that I'm I'm not afraid to confront my dark side. And I think that almost like I have to say thank you to that job, because it made me so sad that my dark side was so overpowering. My when I say my dark side, I mean my depressed side, or the sadness, whatever that came up. The sense of the disconnect between, I wasn't really sure who I was, but I definitely knew I wasn't that. And so I suppose I was frightened, because I was just acting a role. I was performing. And, you can only perform for so long. And then you start to feel more and more hollow inside. As you said, I felt really empty. And yeah, the sadness became so great that I just had to leave. I had to, but I have to credit the transition to this group of women I met while I was living in, because I was living in Dubai at the time. So I met this group of women who created like a healing circle. And we would meet once a month, and we would talk about our problems or our journeys. And then we would, kind of do, I suppose, group therapy. And there was a lady who led it called Cynthia, and she gave us reading material. And I suppose that started my journey to looking at how I was so insincere and inauthentic in so many areas. And it was scary, because I've always been brought up to be compliant because of my family background. And I felt very afraid and unsure of myself. Sorry.
Can I just, because you've said, I hope you don't mind if you say more about your family background just a little bit, because people might be wondering, because you've referenced it twice.
Yeah.
Because some people listening may be having the same feelings, that they're a bit stuck in their parents' or a cultural view that they're stuck in, and it's not fitting them. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Well, my parents are Iraqi immigrants to England. They came in the 1970s. I was actually born in Iraq, in Baghdad, but I left with them. So I've only ever known living in the UK. But I'm their only child. So I had this double whammy of kind of highly educated, high achieving parents. And they were expecting me to follow their, lead. And also there was a sense that there was no stability being in England as an immigrant, and that you had to prove yourself. So it felt like there was no time to be an authentic person, to relax and be you, because that felt like an indulgence growing up. It felt like a sort of silly, frivolous indulgence. You couldn't, that, and dangerous, because where would it lead? So I suppose you always grow up in a kind of fight or flight state all the time, quite anxious. And also because there was so much instability in Iraq, you just didn't know what was happening from one day to the next. I don't know. I think I lived in that sort of psychological prison. And I think part of the process was actually taking off that heavy coat, which they gave me to wear. I'm using that as a metaphor, and freeing myself and allowing myself to feel that it was okay to be creative in my life, and to be free, and to think outside of the box that they had created, and that nothing bad was going to happen actually as a result. But it's still hard, for them, when I see them, to relate to me, because I think they are still in that world, and I think they find some of the things that I talk about or do just dangerous, outside of the realm of their possibility of how one can live. So it's and these things are nothing, maybe to a Western person, it would mean nothing, but for them it feels too much, and that's okay. For a long time I was really angry at them. I blame them for being so unhappy all the way until I started this journey, which was well into my 30s, right? So I thought, Jesus, that's half, like all of my 20s, all of my teens, I've just spent stressed and worried and feeling not real. It's not me. But I now feel a lot of compassion for them, and that's part of the healing too, because it's not their fault. They didn't know any other way. And I think, you know, I know that they love me, and I love them back. But there's an acceptance that that relationship can never be the same. There's a sort of respectful boundary. There are some things they just don't want to ask me, and they don't want to know about, and that's fine. You know, that's
Thank you for sharing that, because I'm sure people will relate to that in all different ways and from all different cultures.
Yeah.
So looking at that and this journey you've gone, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
This journey you've gone, it's almost like your healing journey is completely woven into how you're going to heal other people as well.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's so amazing when I do therapy. I've gone through so many. I think it's because there's no part of me, and there's still parts of me that I discover all the time. I never think the healing journey is over. It's like a spiral going round and round, or a helix. That's what is used in transpersonal psychology. So I feel like, you know, I think I'm fine. It's like the universe brings something to me to remind me, to humble me, and tell me, actually, no, there are still areas where you need to, you know, let go and surrender, and you're trying to control too much. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I have. And I think that when I'm with my clients, they're the biggest teachers, because whatever they go through, I feel like when I'm working on it with them, I'm working on it on myself. You know, it's reflexive, it's dialogue, it's two ways. And the work is amazing in that way.
And how much, if you look back to where you were as a lawyer, then a psychotherapist, and now doing the fashion, now the styling, and you're combining those last few together, how much satisfaction does it give you in each day doing this work that you do? I mean, how does work now feel when you get up in the morning?
Yeah, I mean, work, it feels like I'm living my life. I'm alive. I was actually doing a spinning class this morning, and the teacher put on a song, and the words were, I'm alive, I'm alive. And I thought, yes, this is what it feels like. I'm feeling alive, because being alive means I'm awake. I feel like it's not work in that I'm being asked to do something, and it has to be measured, and I'm going to be valued according to that. It's a vocation, it's purposeful, it's creative. I can make what I want it to be. It can be as creative as I want it to be. And there's such a positive feedback loop. Even when, you know, I am a psychotherapist, I'm not, I'm doing things that, you know, I'm not exposed to happy stories every day. I'm actually exposed to a lot of unhappy stories. But there's something beautiful about the relationship I have with the people I work with, where, you know, I feel like these are some of the most authentic and real conversations. I'm so privileged to be able to have them every day, multiple times, with people. You know, we're connecting, really connecting on a human level, and, you know, and that's what we all seek. True connection.
And do some of the people that you've done psychotherapy with, do they then also do the fashion elements with you? Are some of them at that level where they've been freed from their pain and now they can be more joyful?
Yes. I mean, I haven't hitherto, this is like brand new, just to explain, but because I haven't had I'm still sort of clarifying how it's going to work, but it has happened with a couple of my clients. Yeah. One in particular coming to mind, she was in an abusive relationship and continues to be. She hasn't moved out yet. And her boyfriend has spent years telling her how ugly she is and how fat she is, really nasty things, which she's accepted because she came from a long line of women who accepted abusive behavior from men. And what, you know, we've done therapy for a long time, you know, building her self-esteem, and she then started to think about her clothes, and instead of wearing clothes that were just to cover up her body, she started, and she was thinking about herself as a whole. It's about kind of becoming completely holistic. Then it's sort of, I'm going to feed myself nourishing food. I'm going to dress myself in a way that accentuates my inner beauty. So that's how we morphed into this, and actually wear clothes that I want to wear, not clothes that he tells me to wear. That was her style story, that she had allowed her boyfriend to dictate to her because of his own projection. He was obsessed with his own body, his sort of ugly projection onto her. He was forcing her to wear clothes that she was so uncomfortable in. And she started to shrug all that off, throw those clothes away and buy things that she wanted to wear and challenge him and feel good about herself. And now she will be separating from him eventually, imminently. So there's a journey, it's sort of like clothes become her armor and her defense against the abuse, actually, in that specific example.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So I really like listening to this. It's a beautiful story. And we're going to be coming to the end of the conversation. So if you're looking at the world and all these things that you learn, because you're sitting really hearing people's dark stories and you're helping them find light, and you've been through your own journey, what do you want to see? And also you're doing sustainable fashion and all these brilliant things coming to you. What do you want to see more of in the world?
I mean, on a sort of conceptually, what I would love for people to know is that healing begins here. So until you heal the pain and the brokenness that I will have on some level, in your own, it's going to be very difficult for you to fully open up to loving and to caring and to giving and to have that generosity with anyone else. So I feel like everyone should be given the opportunity to take a look at themselves. I mean, ideally, I would love for everyone to have some wise sage. It doesn't even have to be a healer. I feel like in communities, we don't have sages. We don't respect elders and, or have people who we can go to talk to, not our families necessarily. So it'd be lovely if everybody could have that counsel and that time and that patience, and give each other time to listen to each other in that way. I think it should start, when you're young as well. So I suppose that for me, creating communities, being able to listen to each other.
Say that last bit again, because it glitched. Wait. Say that last bit again. Are you there?
Creating communities that are able to heal each other through listening to each other. And when I say listening, I mean compassionate witnessing, not listening so that you can wait till that person's finished talking so you can make your point, but just honoring and witnessing each other. And that's what I do in the therapy. It's, that's the most effective tool I have, is when I honor and witness somebody's story and I don't judge it. I hold it with love and compassion. And I wish that for everyone. And I think that's the best way for us to heal each other and heal ourselves.
So would you say from that then, if we heal ourselves and give space to listen to other people's stories, like you said, in a compassionate way, that's the beginning of healing the world?
Yes, I definitely think that. The end of, the desire to judge, criticize, comes from, it's almost like we carry shame and we judge other people because we're projecting our shame onto them, like shame on them for doing that. And I'm better than, because it makes us feel better about ourselves. Well, actually, if we can just own that and say, you know what, I have no rights to start judging anybody or interfering in the way they live their life. First, let me look at my own shame and have time, compassion and time. And if in fact, what would be nice if we listened to each other's stories of shame and held each other and gave each other a kind of that loving kindness back, then I think that would help us also to stop judging each other. So yes, all of what you've said, compassionate witnessing, you know, living, accepting of shame and holding it with compassion and love rather than judgment and fear. And yeah, building relationships based on honoring, which is a very difficult term for understand.
Yeah, so I'll get that last sentence again, was building relationship based on honoring
Each other's
yes
stories.
Honoring each other's stories, yeah, because it keeps glitching at that last bit. So do that sentence again, because I like that sentence.
Building relationships based on honoring each other's stories, and those are the best kind of relationships that will heal the world.
Agree.
And I think that's
the world.
You're doing with this project. I believe that's what you're doing with this project as well, Abigail, which is why I'm delighted to be part of it, because I think that's what the culmination of all of this will be, that it'll be a collection of stories, and that each honoring each other, and people who come and witness will be honoring and witnessing those stories. And the act of witnessing the story is itself healing, as you said, because something will touch you in that moment, on some level. So yeah, you're bringing back what we seem to have, disengaged from as a race. And I don't know how it's happened, but it's too long to answer now. But it's great that you're going to be doing this,
and I'm very glad for that we've got your story in the show.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad I got a chance to tell it. I actually enjoyed, when you speak it out loud, it's sort of, I haven't actually told my story to anyone out loud in such a way. So there's something really amazing about you can actually weave a theme, your life is going somewhere. There is definitely a purpose.